Hi everyone, Professor Miller here again, and I wanted to go ahead and look at operant conditioning quickly, and hopefully you'll click on the Big Bang Theory link that I have on your video list to see it actually in action, and then what we're going to do is just jump right on in with what operant conditioning is. So when we're looking at operant conditioning, we're talking about B.F. Skinner, and remember we said this was voluntary. We said that this was a choice that we make and that we continue doing things that we're rewarded for or reinforced for, and then we lessen the chances of doing something if we're punished for it. So we're learning through reinforcement or punishment. Every single time, no matter what the behavior is, it can even be bad behavior. If it continues, we're going to say it's reinforced. Kids who get in trouble at school, they do so because they get something from that. That means they're reinforced somehow. Maybe they're getting the attention. Maybe people think they're cool, whatever. But behavior continues even if it's bad behavior. And then if you're being punished, then your behavior is going to decrease. Now, understand it doesn't have to completely stop, but it means you're going to be much less likely to do it because of what's occurred. So let's go ahead and take a little story here on little Johnny to kind of sink in what's going on here. So little Johnny, we've all met him. He's in the middle of Walmart, and he's in checkout line, and little Johnny is demanding, I want M&Ms, and Mom says, no, you've been a brat, you get no M&Ms, I told you. And he screams, I want M&Ms, and Mom says, no, you're not. And finally, Mom gets fed up and drop kicks little Johnny clear across the Walmart aisles. And little Johnny comes stumbling back, bruised, and looks at Mother and says, I want M&Ms. Now, what was his original behavior? It was demanding M&Ms. What was his ending behavior? Still demanding M&Ms. So what happened? Was he really punished? No, it did nothing. He continued doing, I don't know, maybe he wants a new home. Maybe he doesn't like where he's at and he's hoping CPS will intervene. Maybe he wants to be an acrobat, who knows? But he continued to demand or to behave in that way. So we know for sure that reinforcement has taken place simply because he continued doing it. All right. So now let's go ahead and look at the Skinner box here, and there's actually a way to train rats to do ridiculous things, and it's how we train them is simply by rewarding them. We have little pellets that we give them, and I did this in grad school as well. And what we found is that animals behave very well to positive reinforcements. All right, so now what I want to do is I want to go through, and you can fill out your outline with this. I want to go through explaining what we're talking about with reinforcement and what we're talking about with punishment. So make sure you got your outline handy. Now, when we're looking at reinforcement, I always put an arrow pointing up because that indicates to me that the behavior is continuing. And then, of course, with punishment, I always put an arrow pointing down because my actions are going to decrease. I'm less likely to do them. Now, we have two different kinds of reinforcement. We have positive reinforcement and we have negative reinforcement, and we have two types of punishments. It's either punishment type 1, also called punishment by application, and type 2, also called punishment by removal. All right, so how do we determine which is which? Well, it's the reason why we do what we do. Now, if I continue doing a behavior and the reason I do is to get something good coming to me, I receive some kind of reward, that's positive reinforcement. If I do something to keep from something bad happening to me, that's negative reinforcement. So an example of negative reinforcement would be I always brush my teeth. So I keep brushing my teeth to avoid cavities. Okay, I always study to avoid a bad grade. I always speak respectfully to my parents to avoid getting a spanking. And so whenever I'm trying to get something good or trying to keep from something bad happening and I continue to do it, it's reinforcement. Now over in punishment, remember, I'm going to decrease my actions. I'm going to decrease my behavior, and type 1 or by application. The reason I don't do that as much anymore or don't do it at all is because I had something bad applied to me. All right, type 2 means you took something away from me. So think of type 1, so-and-so stopped doing what he did because he got yelled at. That is something directed at me. Okay, that's type 1. Now so-and-so doesn't talk back anymore because they took away his, I don't know, Game Boy, cell phone, remote control, whatever. And that means you took something good away from them. So that's why we stopped doing what we did. Now, to kind of clarify this, let's look at some examples here. So here's my phrase, I study hard to, and we're going to look at how to respond to that, showing a positive reinforcement. So I study hard, that's my continuing behavior. Why do I study hard? If it's positive reinforcement, it's to get a good grade. I'm trying to get something good to come to me. All right, but we can say the same exact thing. I study hard to, and let's look at what negative reinforcement looks like, to avoid a bad grade. And I know this sounds similar, but we've got to look at the exact wording. I'm doing it to get a good grade, or I'm doing it to keep from getting a bad grade. And I actually ask my classes face-to-face which one they are, and I'm telling you most of the time, there are a few people that raise their hand that they study hard to get good grades, and most of them say, no, I do it to avoid a bad. So although you're doing the same behavior, your reason is different. All right, so now let's look at punishment. I stopped being a brat because, and now let's look at type 1, something bad applied to me. You got spanked. You got yelled at, you got flipped off, you got cussed out, you got embarrassed. Something was directed at you, okay? So you stopped being a brat. All right, now let's look at type 2. I stopped being a brat because you removed my freedom, you put me in timeout, you removed my car keys, you removed my cell phone, whatever. So we're looking at different things. We're looking at what does behavior do, continue or decrease, and then we're looking at why does it continue or decrease. All right, so let's go ahead and look at these again. So first thing that you're going to do is you're going to decide, is the behavior going up or down? So you're going to look at the beginning of the scenario and see what I'm doing. I am studying hard. And then you look at the ending behavior. I'm still studying hard. Boom, I'm over in reinforcement. Okay, so if it's going up or continuing, I'm in reinforcement. If I am, going to, I don't know, break curfew. So if I don't do that as much as I used to, I decrease the amount of times I break curfew. The reason is because, here, okay, so now I got to find the reason. Breaking curfew, applying bad. Maybe my parents cussed me out. Maybe they flipped me off. That would be type 1. Type 2 would be they, grounded me, took away my freedom, took away my car keys, etc., etc. So the first thing you're going to determine, look at that first behavior. Did it continue? If it did, we're looking at reinforcement. If it decreased, then we're looking at punishment. Then you look at why. Why did it decrease? Why did it increase? All right. All right. So let me look at this. So here's our one scenario. Jonathan often plays slots at the local casino. He loses money almost every time he plays. He finally stopped going to the casino. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this and say, what was my beginning behavior? So write this down, everybody. Beginning behavior, plays slots or goes to casino. Okay, so either one of those, he did that at the beginning. But if I look at the end, does he still do that? No, he stopped. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an arrow down. So if I look at the arrow down, what I'm saying is he has been punished. Okay, so now I know I'm in punishment. Now I've got to figure out what kind of punishment. So if we look at exactly why he says he stopped going, it's because he loses money almost every time. So losing money is an example of something good being removed. So this is punishment, behavior went down. Type 2, because you took away something good. All right, everybody, I hope that helps you and you have a good grasp on the operant conditioning. All right, talk to you later.